With the first pick overall, the New Jersey Devils are proud to select from the U.S. program, Jack Hughes.
Lays it across, Vatanen drives, score! Sammy Vatanen let it rip. It's a power play goal, and the Devils have opened it up. Oh, my. Nico walking in, shooting, score! Nico Hischier on the rush, ends it in overtime, and the Devils win it in Montreal.
Manscaped, for trimming around the bush and not having to beat it. It is a company that does amazing things to keep it clean around sensitive areas for manscaping needs and your personal stuff that's below the waist. And waste no time getting into Manscaped. Manscaped products are now a sponsor for Big Heads Media and the Jersey Joe Corner podcast. Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome back, everyone. Today is the first day ever that this podcast gets sponsored by a new company called Manscaped.
Yeah, great to have them on board. This segment's going to be brought to you by Manscaped. We're going to, kick things into it.
Trim things up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Good products, by the way. I actually have some at my house, to be honest.
Oh, my God. I
So
can't wait to get some product on its way.
Yeah, Manscaped. Back for another edition of the Jersey Joe podcast with Jersey Jim and
Jersey Joe.
So Devils road trip 3-2. Not bad for a team. Not bad. After starting 2-0, salvage the road trip. That's not bad.
Yeah, I honestly got to say this. I really thought, things went sour in the middle of it. Like, Edmonton and Calgary was like, it was really, hard to watch versus Calgary because, you left Blackwood out there to dry. I mean, the Devils' defense after Sammy Vatanen got injured, it was just hard. It was hard to watch that game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they played. I thought they played well in the first period against Calgary. Edmonton, it was just another shutout. I mean, there wasn't much they could do. McDavid and Draisaitl did everything they could to make sure the Devils were going to lose that game. I mean, again, it's second period. It's the second period for the Devils. Again, cost them against the Flames and against the Oilers. But they played well against Vancouver on Sunday afternoon. 2-0, 2 quick goals on Markstrom, who was dealing with some stuff. We find out after the game his father passed away from cancer. So
that's never good.
Condolences to the Markstrom family.
Sorry to the Markstroms.
Yeah, but then again, Quinn Hughes scores another goal. So in the second period for
the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, but the Devils hang on, play good defense, and some people, yesterday during the game, people were upset about the no goal. To be honest, I think it was the right call by the officials, no goal, because even though they say it was continuous motion, Markstrom for a minute put his hand on the puck, and then he got moved. So in the end, it really didn't matter. Devils won anyway. Blackwood again steals a game.
Honestly, Blackwood has been nothing but a rebounder as of late. He's come back from these games where, early in the season that we've been watching, they usually get shellacked, but he's been like you and I talk off air that Blackwood has been very consistent in net to the point, he is the number one starter on this team going forward.
Yeah, he is the number one starter. I mean, you could clearly see it that he keeps them in games. He steals them games when they should be losing. I mean, the 2 Vancouver games this season alone, he's won by himself. The game against Carolina to start the road trip he won by himself. And he actually kept the Devils in the game against Calgary until, the defense just, didn't play like it always does.
I was listening to the game versus Vancouver. It sounded like it was very loose defensively. I was at work, but I was coming back home. I was listening to Matt Laughlin on the radio, and he goes, Matt Tennyson helped save a goal. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, this is like ping pong balls going back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, they definitely still need to clean up a lot of things, but they played as a team, and I thought that yesterday was Taylor Hall's best game as a Devil this season. Even though he had chances against Edmonton, he was really engaged yesterday against the Canucks. Whole team was, because they had 2 bad losses, and when you lead the league as a team that's been shut out 3 times this season, that's never a good thing. But they rebounded really nicely against the Canucks. But again, they have the lead. They're like trying to protect it, and Vancouver just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming, and Blackwood again saves the day.
And honestly, we looked at the game against Winnipeg. We did mention in the last podcast that, you can't take Winnipeg lightly, and it's going to be a tough building. But guess who the 2 guys that came in to score in the shootout were the 2 guys that were both sat out in recent games in Nikita Gusev, and the guy who won it was Jesper Boqvist. I mean, how about that for a turn of events, people?
I mean, look, Gusev and Boqvist played really well in that game. Boqvist had chances to get his first NHL goal in that game against Winnipeg. I thought they played really well in Winnipeg.
And they did get that win in Winnipeg.
But both goalies played superb in Winnipeg. Hellenbeck was unreal. Blackwood stood on his head. I mean, in the shootout, you don't know what's going to happen. The great thing about Gusev was he shot the puck right away, and then it went in. And then the one for the Boqvist goal, it went off the post and off Hellenbeck and in, and then Blackwood shut it down. Only need 2 shooters.
Here's something interesting. As of today, Jesper Bratt has a 30.8 shot percentage in 13 games, and Sammy Vatanen has 18.2. Kyle Palmieri has 15. Gusev has 14.8. Severson 14.3. Hughes with 12.5. And you have Coleman with 9.7. Zacha with 9.1% shot percentage. And if you take Zacha, Butcher, you have Zajac and Common, they have tied with 9.1 shot percentage on the team, and Nico's at 8%.
Yeah, and don't forget, Nico missed time with the injury. So, and he, when he came back from the injury, he wasn't playing in situation. Again, it's all situations that they're playing in. But I saw them shooting a puck. I mean, I believe Taylor Hall led the team against the Canucks with 8 or 9 shots by himself.
As of now, actually, I know this doesn't quite speak overall from that game itself, but Hall in 16 games has a shot percentage of 3.4%. So he's not acting like his typical sniper self shooting for goals.
Yeah, and, with Hall, it's crazy because, we'll get into it a little bit later.
Later in the show to juice it up.
Yeah, juice it up. But there's something about when a player goes into his free agent year, he either can perform really, really well or he can perform not so good. And, again, I made the comparison last time, and I'll say it again, and people, they're not on the fence. But if you look at what Austin Matthews is doing with the Leafs, yes, his numbers are great. Yes, if you just look at numbers alone, yeah, he's doing good. If you look at Taylor Hall, and he's like, oh, yeah, he leads the Devils in points again. What else is new? Oh, he had a 7-game point streak. But if you look at the games and watch the games like we have, he hasn't played that good, except against Vancouver. That was his best game.
I honestly feel like he is not really interested in being part of this team near and long term. And even when he hits July 1st, I really don't see him coming back to New Jersey. Even if he did, stay after the February trade deadline, regardless of the standings, regardless of record. I just think overall he's not interested in the culture. And it goes to show that, he just wants to be on a win now team, and the Devils are building. They're trying to build with. They've been building with him for so many years with Ray Shero and Hines, but only one time that team has made the playoffs together.
Yeah, and I mean that's the biggest thing when you talk to people. And Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period has said it, and Dennis Bernstein was talking about it on the hot stove. But their main point has been since the summer is he wants to go to a place where he feels he has the best chance to win every season. And if it's not with the Devils, it has to be someplace else, but we don't know where it is. And the process is going to take a long time. If you can move them, great. But it's tough to move guys that are on their final year of their contract in the trade deadline because you're not sure what you're going to able to get from them. I mean, look at the Ottawa Senators last year with Mark Stone. Unless you have a contract in place with the team he's being traded to, how much are teams willing to trade for a rental that may or may not stay?
It's very, very risky when you're dealing with a rental, period. I'm honestly, if I was a GM right now, if I was, let's say, Colorado or St. Louis, I would have to, give up a lot in return, but at the same time, I can't burn all my draft picks because how am I supposed to restock the cupboard? So you're looking at it from two perspectives. You're looking at it from the seller and the buyer, but it's not as easy as, selling a stock or a bond on the open market.
Yeah, I mean, and like we've been talking about all the time, when it comes to Hall and free agency, it's a process. And like we've talked off air, and I've told this, it's not that easy. I mean, you got to find the teams that have the cap space, one, to do it, and two, are they willing to trade certain assets to get them if they're not going to re-sign them? Now, you look at Colorado, you look at St. Louis, Montreal's been thrown around. They're an interesting team because they have cap space to do it, and they went to go sign Sebastian Aho to the offer sheet last year. They might have some pieces there that you're going to want to get. But another theory which I'm working on, and I took this from Dennis Bernstein and Dave Pagnotta from over the weekend on the hot stove when they brought this up, and it's that instead of allocating the money towards Taylor Hall, where you may or may not have to pay, where you may have to pay him over $11 million, maybe close to $12 million to get him to stay, instead reallocating that money towards building the blue line and getting a goaltender and build from the back end as the Devils have with their winning teams in the past.
I think when you look at that $6 million plus, well, you can use that towards anything possible, whether you're talking about giving a restricted free agent on your team the money to go for the next season forward and or move a guy before the deadline, etc. When you build up that current cap space, you can free up a lot of money and do as much as you can with, let's say, $10 million at least. American, you can do a lot more with that. You can sign a guy, to another $6 million. You can use just about anything.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if we talk about $6 million now, that's what his cap is now. So if he's getting traded to a team that could take on a $6 million. Going forward, it's gonna be more when they re-sign him. So that team also has to ensure that, oh hey, if I do get him, Now can I sign him to that long-term money? So say, for instance, the Devils are going to pay $11 million, hypothetically, for Hall at July 1st. Well,
you talk about July 1st. You know, Darren Ferris basically told Elliot Friedman. Elliot Friedman is like the center of this universe, and he said basically, in just plain English, that he's going to basically pull a Mitch Marner, because Marner took so long, almost until the middle of training camp, like when we first started doing this, and you know, that really drove me nuts, even though that's from a Canadian market in Toronto. But because we have social media, we get this feed from the Canadian side. Boy, oh boy, I'm not in for this extra roller coaster.
I mean, look, you know, even from the beginning, I've been saying this is going to take a long process. And when at the end of the season last year, when Hall called out the general manager, he said we needed to get better. We needed more pieces. They got the pieces in place, and an extension wasn't done. You knew this was going to be a long process. When the pieces were put in place, it'd be like, all right, here's our deck of cards. Here's who we got. This is what we did. And Hall said, not really. And then he comes out and talks about it again, having the same, you know, going into last season when he was on Edmonton radio saying, oh, you know, going into last season, and you have the same pieces in place, and you really didn't make any changes. You know, it's hard to get excited. I'm like, it's a process, and it's a long, drawn-out process. It's his right to do it. Unfortunately, in the end, it hurts the Devils fans because they don't like it. And a lot of them don't understand the side of the business. They're just like, oh, well, this guy doesn't want to stay. Well, you know, in fairness to him, he has that right to do whatever he wants because he's a free agent. But it's just his attitude, what he says. Like I posted the other day when I reposted my article from August about did the Devils do enough? It's the undertones. It's what he says, what he's not saying, what he says in his voice. You can hear that he clearly doesn't want to be in New Jersey, even though he likes John Hines.
You know what? It's like this. I don't know. You've been on the team since 2016, 2017, as in Taylor Hall. I'm talking about. I'm calling him out right now. Since 2016, 2017. You know, it's been such a long relationship that, you know, Ray Shero has been building it, reinvesting, and then made the playoffs. But then he had that one bad, you know, injury year. That really hurt us going forward. And you know what? If you called out Ray Shero like you did in the offseason and you're not committed now after several moves, I mean, this is lunacy. I mean, this is going to be a bad breakup. I mean, this is even worse than Matt Duchene getting traded from Colorado to Ottawa. But
at least with Duchene, he made his intentions known that he didn't want to be in Colorado anymore.
Absolutely, but I think deep inside the locker room, there's a mindset that Hall has these over-determined ideals that he just wants to really make it around himself and not really about the team. At least when the team in 2017, 2018, they were playing for each other.
Yeah, well, it was the NJ. Well, they were not given any credit to begin the year. NJ Devils versus everybody. You know, where's that mindset? Because clearly it's not. I mean, clearly it's not there. I mean, they want to play for everybody, great, but you're in an environment where, you know, look, like you say, call out the general manager, say you need to be better. Okay, we had Subban, Gusev, got Hughes, and the general manager calls you to get approval for the Subban trade, and you still don't want to sign an extension. That was the biggest mistake that Ray Shero had going into this season. Not that I say not everything he does is, you know, I like what he's done, but the big mistake was not having an extension in place when they hit the beginning of this season, because I understand he was coming off an injury. I understand both parties want to see what they should do. I get it. But, you know, in the end, you got to he did exactly what Taylor Hall asked him to do, and it still wasn't good enough.
I also believe that after what Mitch Marner did, I believe it gave Taylor Hall a lot of leverage in, wanting to make more money off of Ray Shero, even though Marner was an RFA. But you could see that because they have the same agent, they were trying to use the same leverage and waiting until someone calls you out for it. And you know what? I mean, we had enough of this hokey pokey BS. I mean, to think about it, it's like a turkey. It's so stuffed up to the point. When are you going to throw it in the oven? And when it's done in the oven, when are you going to pull it out at the right time? I mean, when are we going to get served?
Yeah, exactly. But again, as the boys on the hot stove mentioned on Sirius XM, what's it going to take to sign him? If it's about money, the Devils are going to have to pay him $12 million to do it, because I don't think between 9 and 11 cuts it.
I honestly, if this keeps up as an attitude problem with Taylor Hall in the locker room and calling out the fans for the team underperforming and him not performing to his standards, you know what? I just don't see him staying. I hope I'm wrong, but
I don't think he
from
stays.
From a performance standpoint, this is not very Hall-like.
To be honest, I don't think he stays. I don't think he wants to go through what he went through in Edmonton. I really don't.
Well, New Jersey's not Edmonton. Edmonton is Edmonton. And Edmonton is different now with a different GM. New Jersey is always going to be New Jersey. We're going to find a way without him, because we can't have a head case that holds us back, doesn't promote growth. And we need players that want to be here to stay here.
I agree. They're gonna have to want to play here. They're gonna have to want to be here. They're gonna want to have to perform here. And look, yeah, everybody's that old adage. It's New Jersey. And if you could go back and you look at it, the Devils really never had a true, superstar offensively when they were winning. Their defense was had superstars. Their goalie was a superstar, but they were able to find and manufacture offense because they drafted and developed well.
At least when they got Stéphane Richer back in the past, they were able to use a guy of his snipe ability to produce in the playoffs and in the regular season and help us win a cup. And you know what? I would rather have a guy like Jesper Boqvist get more ice time and more time and exposure in the NHL level rather than sit in a press box, and let him become a top 6 forward and take away that bad taste from Hall that he's given us Devils fans and, Devils universe. I mean, I'd rather give it to someone else at this point.
If you're going to ride the kids, then ride the kids and play them all and play the young team and develop and make them work together. I like what I saw, Hughes and Hall were playing well together. That it's interesting when Zacha was on the wing with Hischier and when he played with Bratt and Gusev. I really liked what those guys were doing.
I do like the Hughes and the Gusev line, though. I do like that, though, along with Palmieri.
I do like it too, but the thing is, it's like an attitude or a culture. You want to build winning, that's great, but you need to also have a mindset that you're gonna be a winner, and there's just too much losing going on and too much too much being down on themselves. And I think if they can establish a culture of winning throughout the year, maybe it convinces them to stay. But I'm not holding my breath because I think these two are headed towards a split.
I believe it is. I mean, we're going to Splitsville, kind of like in that movie, How I Met Your Mother, where the two go to the Splitsville ice cream shop and they end up breaking up, having banana splits.
Yeah,
that's what it makes me think of.
Yeah, it's headed down a path that you don't want, but that's like with any free agent, really. I mean, you look at Tavares, you look at Stamkos. I mean, Stamkos stayed, but Tampa was on the verge of winning. Tavares wanted to go home, and he knew look at it. Lou had a history of not signing guys to long-term deals, but Tavares just wanted to go home, and he did did what he had to do with the island. It's a different situation, but Newark is Newark, New Jersey is New Jersey, and there's something about guys not wanting to play here that the Devils have to get away from.
I think it's the overall mentality. I believe in, guys like Nikita Gusev, coming from a totally different culture in the KHL, and those players, they bond together. And even though Nikita Gusev knows very little English, but at least he and Jack Hughes have something in common. They speak hockey, and they speak the hockey IQ, and they have the right senses when they're on the ice together. And there's some sort of bonding inside that locker room that allows them to communicate better. And I feel he connects better along with guys like Nico. So you have to take into account that I do believe Tommy Fitzgerald is observing a lot of this stuff that's behind the scenes with Hall. And I believe that Ray Shero is going to get more intel from him. And I believe there will be a quicker decision versus a very slow and deadly decision.
Yeah, and if the Devils can make a move to get assets for him and then spend and allocate the money elsewhere to get goaltending, great. But again, it's going to be tough because who's going to trade for him? Or they just want to rent them just to get over a hump if they get over a hump. And if they're going to want to trade for him, they're going to try to have to work out something now. Because if you trade for him at the trade deadline, you don't have him for that extra 20 to 30 games that he needs to adjust to a new system.
That is one of the things. If you recall what I said on YouTube, I said I'm saying it first. He is getting traded before the February trade deadline, probably sooner than that. So I think he's going to want to leave by Christmas time. Even if the Devils do make the playoffs, or barely just get in, I'd rather get a good return on investment now and build away from him once he's gone. And if you can get it, if you can move the puck out of your own zone, moving Hall out, it'd be a lot better Hall without him.
Yeah.
Regardless of the records.
Yeah, they need help on the back end, clearly. The defense is just not cutting it. You could see it. And the fact that Sami Vatanen was out of the lineup on Sunday and they still won. Hey, kudos to them for stepping up in that situation when Sammy's out. But it's a tough blow for them because he does so much. Penalty kill, power play, 5-on-5, all situations.
Skates up ice.
Up. He's really. He's just a solid defenseman for them. And
he's been such a great pickup since trading away Adam Henrique.
Yeah, look, it's a win-win for both teams on that trade. There's nothing wrong with that. So we'll see. But they definitely need to upgrade the defense aspect of this team.
When Connor Carrick does come back from IR, I do feel maybe some of the burden will be let up. But until I know Mirko Mueller's 24, but he's still the same, kind of careless, player and not being smart around his own goaltender's crease. That bothers me there though. I'd rather have Colton White at this time, get called up and. I know a lot of people are calling for Matt Tennyson right now, but it does look like, maybe a move will be done before, middle of the year. So I hope that is going to occur. I did mention to you today, I just don't see St. Louis as a trade partner for the New Jersey Devils for Taylor Hall.
Unless St. Louis is giving you Pietrangelo in return or a goalie in return, they don't have the cap space because they need to sign their captain, who's a free agent, by the way. And they've signed defensemen, and you wonder if he's sticking around.
And to put it even worse, St. Louis does not have a 6th and 7th rounder. They have 2 5th rounders, a 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and a 1st in this year's draft. And they don't have a 2nd in the next draft after that in 2021, and a 7th rounder in that same draft. So really, asset-wise, if you're looking for collateral, St. Louis is not a really good, reliable draft pick partner.
No, it's not. I mean, look, the big name has been Colorado, obviously.
Rocky Mountain High, Colorado.
But again, like I said, the other team that I'm interested to see is if they make a play for them is Montreal, because they have some talent that the Devils could use.
You know what? I'm interested in Jonathan Drouin as one of them.
I'm not talking about Drouin because I think he stays, but I'm looking at their prospects, and there was somebody drafted at 15 that I thought the Devils should have gone up and gotten.
Say his name.
Cole Caulfield.
I would take Cole Caulfield in a heartbeat in that deal. You know who else I would take? Would be Caden Primo. He's from Voorhees, New Jersey. He got a U18, U20 gold and silver medal, and he got a Hockey East championship to his name, and he's a goaltender. So what does that say about his pedigree? We actually have a goaltender we can swap with them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would like Primo. I think he's a real deal, but I think you're going to need to bring in a proven guy to just have in there that has the experience of winning to lock it in, because if we've only seen him in the preseason, he's great. He's doing great where he is. But again, it's preseason, so
preseason is preseason still.
Exactly. I'd like to see him at full National Hockey League level. Not to say he's going to be bad.
No.
But I'm just saying. But I'm just saying he's 20s and he's a project. So you need to have that veteran presence there if you're going to make that transition.
Which means, there needs to be like a Louis Domingue type player that's kind of like the backup, just in case, starter forbid gets injured. You don't want to be short a goaltender, and you don't want to be short on depth.
Well, I'm interested to see if the Devils swap Louis Domingue now that Toronto has waived Michael Hutchinson.
Hutchinson's not that bad. I mean, he does take a better role than he did with Garrett Sparks.
But the thing was, the whole thing is with Toronto is it's not like his numbers were bad. The thing was the way where he was situated and when he was playing, and the team in front of him didn't play that well. I mean, he had to get all the back-to-backs, the hard back-to-backs. Like he played against Chicago last night, played against Boston another time. I mean, you're not giving him a chance to win, and they never gave him a chance to play with a healthy Maple Leafs team in front of him.
Well, Michael Hutchinson's only 29 years old, yet he only has a cap hit of $700,000. I mean, Freddie Anderson is still the number one goaltender there. I mean, Lou Lamoriello traded for him, but there's no way in heck that you get Freddie Anderson. But Michael Hutchinson, his numbers I'm looking at right now, stats-wise per cap friendly, past few seasons. Right now, he's got a 4.44, but a .88. I mean, they left him out to dry in 6 games.
Yeah.
But when he played with the Leafs, for 5 games in 2018-2019 last season, 2.64 goals allowed average, and he had a .914. I mean, he has the stuff. It's just he's being laid out to dry with the defense.
Yeah, I mean, the defense it's just they're not playing well up to standards, especially guys like Tyson Barrie. Jake Muzzin's been their best defenseman this year. But, even with the revamped defense, when Nazem Kadri got traded to Colorado for Tyson Barrie, Kadri made comments about how, it was tough to leave Toronto, this and that. And you could see the same thing with Barrie. Like, it just he's having a hard time to adjust because I don't know if he wanted to actually leave Colorado.
I honestly think he was better off in Colorado, and Ray Shero could have easily traded for him, but at the same time, when Jacob Trouba was traded to the Rangers, the Devils, they end up getting PK Subban, and I do like PK. I just think, with a new look and a new team, it's and a culture change, it takes a lot to really, get a lot of movement going forward.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see if the Devils, who their trade partners are, who they're looking to trade with, because the Kings are definitely in rebuild mode, so they're going to be looking to unload assets. So maybe you can get a guy like Alec Martinez to come out to New Jersey. He's still got a year left on his contract and plays both sides.
And you know what? I would take Alec Martinez. I mean, not for the fact that he destroyed the Rangers with one shot on goal in the other Stanley Cup final, but he does have a good mobility, and for his age, he still moves very well, and he can shoot.
Yeah, somebody asked me about Tyler Toffoli the other day too, and I said, well, I like what Toffoli brings. I like his style, his game, but I'm like, well, who are we giving up? Because we do have talent at the offensive position, and I mean, yeah, would he fit? I would like Toffoli, sure, but do I see him coming here? No, I think he goes to another, a more of a contending team, to be honest.
There's going to be so much movement this trade deadline. I mean, I'm not waving a white flag or anything, but I want to get a lot back now because the Devils will be such buyers when it comes to getting better defensive players that will make them better. Not just in the middle of the season, but later in the season, regardless if they make the playoffs.
Yeah, and you wanna if they're clearly, I mean, again, playoffs aren't a thing that we're looking at right now, but you always
building forward.
Yeah, you want to build towards the playoffs. You want to be a contender, but you also got to look at that 20-game mark when it's like, all right, where are they going to really be situated? And they're coming home. They got a pesky Ottawa team. Then you got Pittsburgh, no Crosby, but
still deadly.
Still deadly, yet history over the last couple seasons is showing the Devils, when they play Pittsburgh, for some reason they win.
It feels like anytime, they play against a Malkin or Crosby type lineup or all together, they know what to expect. They know what to contain. They have like a full scouting report. Like each individual player has like an idea of how to play and shut down each guy. It just feels like each team knows how to do that to each other.
Yeah. And they've known the Penguins for so long and so well that, even Malkin's back there. You got Jared McCann. They're making some different. They're do some different things, show you some different looks. But for some reason, the Devils always play well against the Penguins. I don't know what it is. They just do.
I think it's the play style, just like how the Devils play the Canadiens. And the Canadiens, their size is similar to the Devils in some ways or another. Their format is pretty similar, but yet, when I look at the Canadiens, when they play away from the Devils and they play other teams, they play with speed, skill, finesse. The Devils have a speed, skill, but more power, though, because, you have a guy like Wayne Simmons and you have a Miles Wood who can be a blend of speed and skill. Yet the physicality comes out at the right times against those two teams.
Yeah. And, the Canadiens are another team the Devils are going to see this week. It'll be this coming Saturday in Montreal. It's going to be interesting who they see. I got a feeling we're going to see our old buddy Keith Kincaid in net for Montreal.
I think Carey Price is tired of getting the hand against the Devils.
Yeah.
And you know what? Kyle Palmieri wants his guts after a few seasons ago when he got whacked. And you know what? Those kind of moments really like make you think back when you're probably in your travel days saying, I really want that guy again. I want to go up against him. I want to score.
Yeah. there's some goalies that you always play against that, they get inside your head or you get inside their head and you're like, oh yeah, I want to see this guy. The Devils, for some reason, when they play Carey Price, they seem to play well against him, and the Canadians. Don't know what it is. They just do. There's some teams, and you go back to the history of this team. Doesn't matter how good they are, how bad they are. The certain teams they play, they do well against. Certain teams they play bad against. I don't know what it is.
It's like, I don't think we even played Columbus yet. I mean, Columbus usually has our number, and usually – no matter how many times we play them, we only win like one game versus them.
Yeah.
And they usually beat you could basically put a good money line bet and, you probably end up betting against your own team and you end up winning. So I'm not advising anyone to just put money down on just that, but who knows? I mean, it's a wash.
Yeah, it's a clear wash. But, they got Ottawa, a team. For some reason, they struggle against the Sens. The Sens always play well against them for some reason. So, I mean, Wednesday night, they're back. Hopefully, Sammy's back in the lineup. But, it's day-to-day, with the travel back from Vancouver. You got practice. You see how he feels. They haven't announced that he's going to be on IR yet, so that's good.
Well, I mean, Crosby is just one of those guys that raises everyone's awareness. Like, 2 times higher than some other players that you go up against. Not as high as Connor McDavid, but still, you look at, Crosby to this day, he's still the best overall hockey player in the world. I mean, not anything against Connor McDavid, but you haven't won a Stanley Cup yet, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, McDavid, his speed, his hands, his quickness. I mean, he's one of the best players in the league right now, but I will still take...
You got, four goals last night or something?
Yeah.
Something ridiculous?
He had a hat trick last night, I know that. I mean, look, he's a great hockey player, and I would take Sidney Crosby on my team any day. And, to me, he's still the best player in the world, the way he keeps transforming the game.
Listen, if I was all jazzed up on coffee on draft day, and you gave me, let's say, for the New Jersey Devils franchise to start over, and you said McDavid or Crosby, I'm going with Crosby still. I mean, the overall package of the player, he can play two-way. He can outsmart you. He doesn't have to outblast you with his speed, but it's his intelligence. It's the art of war he has in his arsenal that makes him so deadly that people overshadow still.
Yeah, I mean, Crosby is one of the best players I've seen play. And, yeah, people get on him for, his...
whining.
Yeah, but you know what? Every year he seemed to work on an issue that he thought he needed to work on, whether it be face-off, stick handling, shooting, skating, it doesn't matter. And he's become a complete player. And that's why he's won Stanley Cups, and he's, won gold medals and done the trifecta. And
it's the gold medal club.
Yeah, he's won a World Junior, he's won a World Championship, Olympic gold, Stanley Cup. Guy's the first ballot Hall of Fame when he retires, and he saved the Penguins franchise.
He literally did it. You could call him Saint Crosby, but we call him Crybaby still. And we still mock Sidney Crosby, no matter if he's playing or not at the Rock. But
yeah,
in all fairness, I mean, Nico Heischer's done really good this season. 55% in the face-off circle. Zajac 52%. Rooney 51%, and Kyle Palmieri actually got 50% face-offs. Really, that's what happens when you get kicked out.
Yeah, I mean, Rooney's been decent this year. I mean, he hasn't been great, but he's been good. I mean, he seems to fill in that fourth line position that the Devils have been looking for. I like what he brought. I would just wish they would play Jesper Boqvist more because, he had a couple of these. He had good games. He had 3 good games, and then, he's going to be out of the lineup. We have to figure out what we're doing with him.
I think in the middle of the season, Ray Shero is probably going to ended up telling John Hines, it's time to play Boqvist more. And he's probably going to send down Hayden and possibly Rooney, be like, you know what? I think, long term you need to stop playing these patching guys. No offense to them, but you need to play with more skilled guys and guys that are determined to win versus, a Hayden who likes to shoot a lot and win faceoffs, but you need to have someone more than just that.
I agree. They definitely need to figure out what they're doing with their line combinations because they keep changing things when it was working. Not to beat a dead horse, but I mean, you had a line that was working in Winnipeg, won you a game. And then all of a sudden, midway through the Calgary game, I don't like what I see. I got to start changing things. Why? There was still a 2-2 hockey game. Like, there was no – I mean, they were generating some things, but they couldn't stay out of the penalty box.
There were so many odd penalties in that game, and there were some penalties that, we shouldn't have taken. Yet, there's still all these factors that went in, and there was that one opening goal that should have counted for Nico, yet they called and blow the whistle right away, and they wiped it off. Yet, there was another play like that in Calgary that just went Calgary's way at the end, and that was just like, F this.
Yeah, and then you go into Edmonton, and I mean, Koskinen, he played well against the Devils again, shut him out. But you know what? Edmonton went back to what was the winning formula because that's what they did in New Jersey. And then the Vancouver game was weird because there were calls, then there were no calls, then there was a makeup call, then they had another power play at the end, couldn't connect on it, missed the net like 3 times. Again, the second time Vancouver's played the Devils, they couldn't hit the net, or Blackwood just throwing them straight out.
And there was that time where, you had Jesper Bratt got that redirect, and he tipped it in for that second goal. Simmons had that opening goal, which was the momentum starter. Usually when you score first, that's when you have the momentum, very likely your odds of winning. But, if your defense isn't up to snuff, like most of the season, it is hard to win.
Yeah, I mean, look, Simmons' first goal was beautiful. I mean, nothing but hard work in front of the net. Kyle Palmieri makes things happen. He crashes into Markstrom, goes over to Simmons, boom, in the net, and then boom, Severson shoots. Brad tips this 2-0 like that. And the Devils, they played well from there. But again, Vancouver, they couldn't capitalize on their chances to score. And there was the no call on Severson on who clearly hooked Quinn Hughes. Elias Pettersson, I'm sorry.
Elias Pettersson probably got the assist from Quinn Hughes, if I recall correctly, from the scoring line.
Right, but Pettersson got hooked by Severson, no call. And then Pettersson hits Hall into the boards, but they call Hall for embellishing when you really should have just taken both guys there because there was clearly boarding. But Hall did embellish a little bit, but it was a makeup call for the no call on Severson.
There's always like the give and go calls, like in any sport. And any of our fans, probably watch the Giants-Jets game on Sunday. We can all relate to calls and missed calls. This is what happens in hockey. One thing happens, another thing happens. A penalty's called, another penalty's called. And it's to even it out. And, at the same time, they're trying to keep it kosher.
Yeah, but it's hard to even it out when it was a boarding penalty. Like, I could see it with a trip or a hook or a this and a that. But boarding, it was tough. It was like, he did hit him into the boards. Yeah, did he go down and wail a little bit? Yeah, so why don't we take them both or just let it go? So, but the Devils hung on to win the game anyway, so
they come off 3-2. So they went on the road, 1-3, lost 2. But you know what? They gained some momentum. And you know what? Regardless of all this Taylor Hall BS, the team if you minus Hall, they played as a team and they played as a unit. And although the defense has been shoddy for most of the season, at least they're learning to play better and iron things out under Tom Fitzgerald's watch and trying to help John Hines, get some confidence back in his coaching. But who knows if Hines makes the rest of the season or he gets, let go at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, they've definitely built some confidence playing on the road, which is good because they didn't have a road victory. And the schedule gets most of November is on the road, and then they're back on the road again in December. So you got to learn to win those games on the road, and you got to learn to win tight games, and they're doing it. But the problem is they're also getting blown out in games and getting shut out in games still. So what can we fix?
Well, it's the defense, and you got to be able to acquire another goaltender. I mean, offense doesn't worry me. Even when you do trade Taylor Holloway, you're going to get another great offensive player and another defensive player for him right away. So you're going to get a king's ransom. But Ottawa, to me, is one of those teams you should never play easy. You should play them as if it's the playoffs. And you want to make sure that, Bobby Ryan, if he does come back, he doesn't take over, playing in New Jersey like he has in the past when healthy and when he was able to get focused on his own game in years past. But you still want to make sure you don't allow the Senators themselves having J.G. Pageau, who's probably having one of the best comeback seasons of any player right now, but you could disagree or agree.
So on a team that's near the bottom of the standings and has played better as of late, J.G. Pageau has a plus-minus of plus 16 when everybody else on the team is either single-digit plus or mostly single-digit minuses. That's a plus 16.
That is like, how do I trust that number? It's like so skewed. I mean, he does get out there to score a lot, whether he creates it himself or he ends up being on the same time when someone else on his team scores.
So in 16 games, he has 12 points, 8 goals, 4 assists.
So he has been on ice where it's gone down.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, they've been playing better as of late. So you really can't underestimate this team at 6-9-1.
They did beat the Rangers.
They did, exactly. They seem to always own the Rangers too. So I mean, that's another weird thing. Devils 5-7-4. So they're moving up. I mean, look, they're in 8th right now, only a point behind Columbus, 2 points behind the Rangers. Detroit, Ottawa near the bottom of the standings in the Eastern Conference. No surprise there. But what's interesting to me is that it goes in streaks, right? If you get hot, you get towards the bottom, you get to the top of the standings. If you start losing games, then things get tricky. And then, a Metropolitan Division, a team like Carolina, who got off to a hot start, has come back to earth. Pittsburgh is in the first wild card, and teams like Florida and Buffalo, who people projected to be there, they're fighting.
And Buffalo they got that chance where they can do very well by February and keep a lot of those defenders. But if they start to falter, maybe another playoff team goes after those defensemen to improve their defense, or maybe Ray Shero finds a seller and they become a buyer of those players that makes sense for a trade. I think there's Scandala, but you have Rasmus Ristolainen and several other players that are on that Buffalo team that look pretty good, that you can't just hold on to every single one of them. But the 16th of November, the Devils are going up to Montreal. Then you have 2 games after that. You have on the 19th, you are home against Boston, and there's always Bruins fans around. Nothing against Boston fans, but it always feels like a Bruin Ranger game type feel because it feels like that irritation sometimes, but not quite that same feel. But Bruins fans do talk their fair share of chirping. But then you go to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so you play Pittsburgh twice in
7 days.
So I mean, there's two big games for you right there in the division. And like you said, we're into Montreal, and then you got Detroit, Minnesota, Montreal again, and the Rangers.
In the middle of that, you're at Montreal at the Bell Center, and they had a big festival of scoring. It was basically a goal scoring clinic on the weekend, especially with Shea Weber being his true self.
Yeah.
That rocket baby. Woo.
He had 2 goals in that game. And speaking of the team we play Wednesday, well, they're getting shelled tonight in Carolina 6-1.
Well, there is karma, so everyone starts to come down to earth, and they start to get trimmed back, kind of like with their manscaping kits.
Exactly.
I actually found a good segue for that one. It felt really good to just say, clean things up a little bit.
Exactly. You got to clean things up with Manscaped. They help you out. All men's products. They help you out. You want to stay nice and clean. Get that body hair off. Use Manscaping. They got the razors. They got the creams. They got everything there. Check them out.
Any family members of someone who needs one, please buy it for the holidays. I mean, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, they're all coming this time of year. Stock up. It is perfect. It's just like getting your favorite new player by the NHL trade deadline.
Hey, did you see this one yesterday? Not to get off topic, but did you see the quotes from Jim Montgomery yesterday?
What did he have to say for the Dallas Stars?
Okay, so let me pull these up real quick. But yesterday, I found these interesting because I thought I brought this up a couple times ago that, how many times do these guys need a kick in the pants? So a reporter asked Stars head coach Jim Montgomery, are you disappointed with the scoring of your top players? Jim Montgomery, very disappointed. Are you seeing signs of progress? No. Are you? Montgomery goes on to say, you need your number one center, your number one left wing to step up and do more. They've got to decide if they want to be a difference maker. Look who scored for the Jets. You need your number one center and your number one left winger to step up and do more. So they're talking about Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin again.
It sounds like I think it was Jim Nill who said last year that this is like bleep bleep bleep, and they need to perform better. And it sounds like they got the message in the middle of the season. They started to eventually pan out.
Yeah, I mean, it gave them a wake up call. But as I've said before, how many times did guys like that need wake up calls and need to be motivated to play hockey?
If I recall correctly, I remember Ray Shero saying something with expletives and stuff in the middle of the season to perform better.
It's play effing harder.
Yes, that was the one. Thank you for reminding me. I have so much in my brain box right now. It's just like there's so many bits of information that are stuck back there, yet you pulled up the right one in the box.
Yeah. I mean, I made a T-shirt out of it. This is play effing harder. It does.
You know what? If you could play effing harder, play effing smarter.
Right. So last year it was Dallas Stars CEO Jim Lights that ripped into Benn and Seguin, calling them terrible for their the way their play has been. They were very frustrated because the team was losing and in a position, and they have all this talent. They've put talent together. They're trying to win a contention. And his quotes are, "We don't question their desire to win, but they think it's easy, and that's what bothers me." There's just too much complacency in their game, lack of attention to detail, and that's what we need: accountability, attention to detail, and hard work.
You know what? We need just that kind of stuff, whether it's Ray Shero or whether it's Tommy Fitzgerald, they need to come out publicly and start saying it. I mean, you go on Devils Twitter, you go on just about any social media out there. I mean, Instagram, people are saying, fire Hines or get a return for Hall, etc. Don't let him walk, etc. You want your best players to be held accountable at all costs, regardless of what you have.
Yeah, and your best player for their performance on the ice, and when they don't perform well, it should be made known. And Dallas Stars, I've put together a team that should be in the playoffs, and it should be contending for the playoffs, and should be playing better than they have. Now, they did turn it around, and they've won some games, and they've gotten points.
And they lost to the Jets within 38 seconds in Winnipeg. They could have gotten a second point.
Yeah, and they didn't. But that's because Mark Scheifele took over the game, and they won in overtime. And they were up 2-1.
That just shows you, like, you let go of the pedal on the car right there. How are you supposed to go forward if you don't put your foot on the gas?
Exactly. So, I agree. You see Stamkos come out and say it, that they need to be better. You've heard the Washington Capitals, Ovechkin talk about what Toronto needs to do, and Doughty echoed the same thing. The Devils need to be called out a little bit for what their inconsistency in their play, not just by us, not just by other podcasters, but somebody in the team needs to say, look, we need to be accountable for the fact that we're not playing well and we're underperforming.
And you're right. It's not all about, the people on the outside. It's the people on the inside that need to hold each other accountable. It's like, think of like not just any other hockey player. It's every other person who goes to work every other day. You are there to put bread on the table, right? It's your job to perform better, to also, adapt each day in and day out. And if you don't take it seriously, someone else is going to come for you.
Yeah. And, they talk about a brotherhood. They talk about being accountable. They talk about wanting to, Subban and Schneider came out and said after the one game, look, we need to be better at this and that. But I want to hear from the leader of this team.
I want to hear from Andy Green himself.
Exactly.
You know what? He says things, in a calm manner, but he's not known to be a very vocal guy.
He's not.
I mean, he's in his last year. I mean, there's so many things going on in his mind at this point in his career. I mean, I can't see him, coming back for another season. I mean, he's good enough to play, a full season if he can. But if he could play at least, his body's maximum, I think we're better off, playing more games without him when he can't play. It's just, it's hard to move forward when you don't have a captain that doesn't speak up. I mean, Paul Mary does have a vocal voice in the locker room, but, Taylor Hall, when he speaks, is usually words that don't always make the best sense or the sense at the right time, and it usually comes out incorrectly.
Yeah. And, just to bring it full circle again, we giving it to the fans with the ear and the talking to the fans about how it's a hard place to play. Well, you know what? When there's expectations on the team and they're not performing, and it wasn't about the power play, it was the fact that they just didn't play well. That's why you boo. And the fans had a right to do it. And we went over this whole thing before.
I was at the game when not versus Philly, but I was at the game before the Philly one where they lost in, what was it, overtime or shootout? It was one of the most recent ones.
Oh, that was the Tampa Bay game.
Yeah. You know what? They should have played a lot better in that game, but I didn't boo in that part because that's not in my good heart and my good soul as a Devils fan and a podcaster. I'm just there to observe what people had to do in that sense. But when Taylor Hall made those comments and you told me and I got back home from the train, that was pretty alarming for me. I mean, that was a big wake-up call, and I had to tell people outside of New Jersey what's going on.
Yeah. Again, just another instance of a guy who doesn't seem like he wants to be here. But you need vocal leaders, and you need guys to step up, and you need to be called out and be held accountable for what the team is doing, what the team is not doing. And look, it was a successful road trip. In the eyes of many, I would say this was a good road trip. I like it. 3-2, that's not bad. 4 wins is tough. It really is. To go 4-1 on a road trip, that's really tough on a 5-game road trip. So 3-2, at least they salvaged it with a win, because the 2 losses to Edmonton and Calgary were not
6
good.
out of 10 like that, points-wise. For me, for this team that's been struggling so mightily, that's a success, not a failure. I mean, not to discount it, but back to the whole Hall thing, Devils fans are a special breed of fans. They want to see you succeed. If you don't want to succeed and you don't perform and you go out there floating, kind of like Don Cherry used to say, I know Cherry's gone, but you cannot be sitting in the passenger seat. You have to be the one driving the car and moving it straight on the highway, and keep your head straight and look forward to oncoming objects, because there's so many things on the road ahead to success. But if you're just going to be a passenger, Taylor Hall, then get out of here. I'll be happy to have someone else take you in an Uber.
Yeah, you focus on what you need to do. Have a direction on where you need to go. But don't be a passenger. Keep your head up at all times, and just be mindful of what's going on out there. Got a day of practice tomorrow before Ottawa comes to town. I'm wondering what the Senators do. I mean, they'll be in town. I wonder if they're going to practice again at the American Dream Hall like they did a week ago.
Oh, that's going to be interesting. To bring back an old hockey mind, Herb Brooks once said, he also coached the Devils. Good segue for this one. The name of the front is more important than the name on the back. And you know what? If you're that one individual that's going to keep up being a passenger, you know what? You might as well not be on the team. And you know what? We need this team to keep playing the way they are and playing better and smarter. And if you have the integrity to go out there and play with that NJ on the front of your sweater, that's who you're paid by. The fans, the owners, taxpayers. I mean, we all support this team, and we need you to perform.
Exactly. You got to perform. You got to step up. You got to hold yourself accountable for what you haven't done, what you did do, and that's it. I mean, just be the best player out there each and every night. You may win some, you may lose some, but as long as you give an effort, then people are happy.
Devils fans want to see the players on that red and black team to play with their hearts on their sleeves, like the same way Bruce Springsteen sings every song and howl like Gaslight Anthem. I mean, you got to have a bouncing soul, man. You can't just go out there and be like, bring on your wrecking ball. Bring on your wrecking ball. We can't have that kind of player who's going to go out there and give his very minimal. You can't do that. You can't put just an ounce of coffee in the coffee cup. You have to give the Devils fans a full mug of coffee to enjoy. Because if you do it half full or whatever less, they're going to boo you. It's given.
Yeah, it is absolutely given. You need to perform your best. You need to bring it every night. And if you don't, you're going to hear it. And Devils fans are passionate. And
sure, I mean, we're not Montreal or, any of those true hockey markets that people claim. But you know what? We are a hockey market, and we are passionate fans. Each year I see more new faces. I see more passionate fans at the games. I listen to the games. I hear how loud when people chant "ref you bleep," or everyone starts a different chant or all that stuff.
And that chant gets me annoyed because that's just fans that don't understand the game and don't understand what penalties are getting, what a penalty is and what a penalty isn't. And I'm not gonna label everybody like that. I don't want to, but it just, like when I'm sitting there as an official, I'm like, yeah, that's not a penalty. I mean, it's not. And they're like, oh, refs, you stink, all this stuff. I'm like, but go do the job for a game. Try it at that pace, or go ref a kids game or a high school game. It's tough. I've been in that position. I know what it's like, and it's a fast game, and things are missed. But I tell you, most of the time it's not because the referees let them play hockey.
But also, away from the negative side of things, on the positive side, I've seen fans, get into it every goal, every chant. Fans are out there they want to see the players perform, whether you're Andy Green that's been there for a long time, or you're Jack Hughes, who's the bloodline and the savior rookie that's come in. He's absolutely performed to expectations. But Jesper Boqvist is one of those guys that people really want to see succeed, and he's starting to show signs of success. And he's not a passenger, he's a driver.
He is a driver, and he's going to continue to be a driver, and I've liked what I've seen from him. And, he's just going to keep doing it as he develops and gets better. And
I mean, there's so much going on, both pro and con this year that, when this team develops without Taylor, they find their groove with and without they will be so successful in the long run. We'll be winning more playoff games. We'll be winning regular seasons a lot better. And you know what? We'll be back to our glory days. I mean, I listened to Ken Danico on the main concourse versus the Lightning in one of the intermissions. He talks to fans, outside of that little area there that he gets his free food. But he did say, in his voice that he does feel that this young team's going through a learning process.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, they are. I mean, it's still a very, very young team that had some expectations on them because of all the pieces that were brought in. But again, is it the pieces in the toolbox, or is it the guy getting the pieces out of the toolbox, not understanding that maybe he knows how to use, maybe the guy doesn't understand how to get.
You mean Coach Hines?
Yeah. I'm trying to dangle around by not saying his name, but I feel like Coach Hines can do more with less, and he doesn't know how to do more with more.
It reminds me of Smash Mouth. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. He's looking kind of dumb with a finger of a shape of an L on her forehead. And so that reminds me of that song in a way. And, you if you have, your not even your highly most skilled players, they still can be very effective players in different facets of the game. I mean, you don't have to be, last year's Tampa Bay Lightning to, destroy teams offensively and defensively. You need a really good goaltender, and you need a really good defense that allows you to turn things around for offensive production. And if you can do that, you can easily win games a lot more when you're able to trust your defense and your goaltending to lock things down more.
Yeah, and it all goes back to what we said at the beginning, is that maybe the Devils can allocate that money to build the defense like they've had in the past with their winning teams and get a goaltender that can stop the puck. Not to say Blackwood can't do it, and I think he is the future of this team, but if you bring a veteran in there that has experience, that settles the game down a little bit, then the offense has the confidence and the defense has the confidence back there that maybe they could do a little bit more.
And you know what? I wish this team could pull off a trade like I could in Yahoo Fantasy, where you could trade Leon Draisaitl for Andrei Vasilevsky straight up. But I doubt something like that would ever happen in, regular NHL trades. It's one of those things that you wish you could do. But if I was Ray Shearer and I pulled off a similar move like that with Hall for Vasilevsky, I would be very content with the goaltending.
I would too. I would really be content with that, but that's not going to happen. It's the NHL. There's a salary cap. I mean, there's a salary cap. There's not a salary cap in Yahoo, but there's a salary cap in the real world, and it restricts that kind of movement and those kind of deals.
And I mean, in a perfect world, you could get it done, but with that being fantasy, it's fantasy. But
exactly,
we have such a good time, being able to understand what, our team is able to do and not do. But I know we've been actually expanding our listeners recently.
Yeah, I noticed that.
You noticed that we got one listener in Moscow recently?
Yeah, you showed me that. You sent me the screenshot. We got a listener in Moscow. It must be a fan of Nikita Gusev. They have to be.
You know
right?
what? We got so many different players drafted from Russia that the Devils are going back to their Red Army roots, where you had Slava Fetisov, or should I say Vyacheslav, which would be more proper. But
yeah, Vyacheslav Fetisov came on at Vladimir Konstantin. Alexei Kasatonov, his buddy, was here with him too. So, Devils were progressive when it came to drafting Soviets and getting them here.
And having, if you look at Binghamton, Mikhail Maltsev is, I know people say Michael Maltsev, more Americanized. I regress from that. I say it the Russian way because it's a lot more proper for me to do that. But Maltsev, I think will one day come up and play bottom six role, and he'll do a lot better than Kevin Rooney.
Yeah, I think so. He'll do a lot better than Kevin Rooney. But the Devils have their talent. There's the talent pool is there. It's going to be interesting what happens this week with the team. Who they get back, what comes back, and it's good road trip. Now build on it and see what you can do.
And there's so much we can do within the past few days. I did my fair share of John Sterling calls, one versus Carolina, one versus Winnipeg. Let me do this one for the listeners. The Devils win. The Devils win. Glory for 3.
Oh, John Sterling. I like that when the Yankees win. I love it when I hear it, and I like when I hear the Devils win because you know what? They deserved they deserved to win yesterday.
You know who got me into that was Jake Wakely, one of our good listeners up in Ontario. He's also a good friend of mine on Facebook Messenger. We've met in person a couple times at the Rock, when he comes down from Canada. He's also a big Yankee fan as well. So he goes, "Can you do a John Sterling call for the Devils?" I said, "You know what? Maybe I'll do it." I had this going on for the Jack Hughes draft before Jack Hughes was drafted by the Devils. And I was like, Jack Hughes.
Johnny Sterling. So I just got passed a quick note in my email. Devils aren't practicing tomorrow.
Oh, that's so okay. That's breaking news.
So, I mean, I guess we have to get some sound for when we have breaking news on our podcast.
Oh my god! If I could figure that out, it would be like dun 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 dun. Sorry, ESPN. Maybe you should sponsor us.
But the Devils aren't practicing tomorrow, so overreact how you will, or don't. I really don't. But there is no practice for the Devils tomorrow, so that means they're gonna have a morning skate against the Senators on Wednesday.
And for everyone who's listening in, Spotify's around. You have Radio Public. We have Pocket Casts. We have Overcast. We have Google Podcasts. We have Castbox. We have Breaker. We have Apple Podcasts, as well as Anchor.fm. We also have YouTube. Just to let you know, I put an audio file on through another transition place. It's really successful that way. It also has subtitles in English. So whether you're somewhere public or you have someone who's learning English, listening to this wonderful podcast right now, you can listen to what Jim and I are saying. It's a lot easier that way. I do that for all our listeners. I'm testing this podcast out on SoundCloud for the time being to see how things go, but just trying to test the waters.
Yeah, so we're everywhere, and I mean, we got the listeners and people. I've been, I got some great some of the guys of my followers, Steve Palumbo out of California. He always gives me a listen. Guys up in Canada, I know have been listening, and they like the podcast. And just check us out: Spotify, iTunes, where you can get all your podcasts from. And just stay tuned for more great content.
And you know what? We're always trying to reach out to as many people as possible. One of the most interesting countries I mentioned once before was Romania. I actually told Will Scouch that. And it's very interesting to see how hockey's starting to spread and social media works for us all. And we have 4% viewership in Brazil in the Sao Paulo area. So really it's, people are starting to learn about hockey in the international side. We have downloads in Australia, I can tell you that. And one up in Canada, because there's Frankston, Greendale, and Brighton East in Australia that are tuning in.
Oh wow! So we're international.
We are international. We got Canada 1%. We actually, our growth in Ontario is at 75% right now. There's 33% in Elora, Toronto at 33%, and the good old Tim Horton area of Oakville, Ontario, 33% there.
Yeah, and like I said, I got buddies in that area, so they've been checking it out.
Ah, that explains. And we have England, and there's a listener in England, in London.
I don't know anybody in England, but that's good that we, like I said, we're worldwide now, baby.
I think it's the help with Cam Jansen because he played in the English Ice Hockey League, and there's the Cardiff Devils. I think is in Wales, but it's still part of the UK. But there's always going to be someone getting influenced by different leagues and stuff like that. It's great to see the game expand. It's not, just North America and most of Europe. I mean, just seeing Russia on there, to me, that shows that someone's, probably knows English right now, and they're probably reaching out to other people like Nikita Gusev. So maybe the Goose, the Red Army sniper, can influence.
That would be great. A lot of influences around the world, a lot of great hockey. I'm glad everybody's listening. We're doing our best each and every podcast. We're looking to grow even more. With Manscaped coming on now, this is huge for us.
This is going to be great because this is a company that went on Shark Tank and they didn't get an investor. And you know what? They missed out big, baby. And I think this is going to be a great holiday exchange, whether you have a $50 gift to give. I mean, go on their website. I mean, the graphics are awesome. I mean, we're getting, a little bit of samples coming our way. We have a total of 382 total plays since we started this podcast. I know that doesn't sound huge, but for us in our first season, we're trying to grow our audience, and with so many sponsors steadily coming, through Big Heads Media, it is a great blessing to have.
It really is. It really is a great blessing. And, I'm just blessed for everything that we've had, our continued run here. And we're going to just keep bringing you the best Devils content we can each and every week.
And I tell you, I was so surprised when we got Sam Simmons. I'm giving you a shout out, man, from MSG Networks for letting us do our little bit, even though we didn't get on, but we did give our best. At least we got our name out there. And I will tell you this, though. I'm looking at the graphics for devices, people listening on our podcast. 46% is done by iPhone.
So, iPhone is very popular. One of the, that's what everybody uses. That's what I use. So
it's what I use. And 26% on the web, and 8% on Android, and 15% other, along with 4% on Mac.
Yeah, that's. The 4%. A lot of Apple products out there, so that's good to have. So
I would hope, people, if you're listening in, please, spread the love of the Jersey Joe Corner along with Jim. We have our Big Heads Media shop. It's on there at bigheadsmedia.com. You can find our Jersey Joe Corner products on there. We get paid when people buy our stuff. I actually sent a link to my father because, he wants to support the show. So I actually bought a sweatshirt for a friend of mine. Her name is Joanne Dwyer, lives in Bradley Beach. She has the evergreen color for the Jersey Joe Corner podcast that I got her.
That's really cool. So yeah, I've told my parents about it, and they're gonna support it. So I know I got friends listening in. They are proud of what we're doing. Couldn't be more supportive, and they really enjoy what we're bringing and the content that we're bringing. So, this is what we got. Devils are back at it Wednesday. 7:00 start from the Rock against the Ottawa Senators. Then they play Pittsburgh Friday. Then they up to Montreal.
And 3-2 on the road was awesome. And we got to go hip hop hooray, baby! And you got to
hip hop hooray,
3 times. You got to play, howl that many times when the Devils scored in those wins. So you got to blast that many times. Sorry if I drive your family nuts to our listeners with those ideas, but hey, it's just spreading the love of New Jersey Devils cheer.
Yeah, and of course, after every Devils win, it's a little inside joke with my friends. Celebrate with seltzers, and then you give a big woo.
Woo! Yeah, that's how I feel when the Devils win when I'm there. And I go down the escalator, and it just feels great. People doing the woo, but this is the first time in my fanhood that when I go to the Rock, we're 0-3. So we have not won a game in person for me there. We have not lost a regulation game. We've only gotten 3 points when I was there in the extended game in overtime and shootouts. So,
yeah.
Well, at least it's not regular loss.
No, at least they're not. At least they're not losing in regulation. At least they lost in overtime.
At least where I go, they actually get a point.
Right. Exactly.
But it stinks to get the loser point, though. It kind of kicks you in the where, in the manscaping region.
Yeah, it really does.
I think this podcast is going to be called the positive energy given by Manscaped. No, I'm only kidding.
Absolutely. Yeah, right?
Yeah, right.
No,
I was only
good.
playing. But all goodness, I mean, this episode is going to be pretty interesting for a title.
Yeah, it really will be. But yeah,
I think we're gonna have to wrap it up soon.
I think I've pretty much said everything I need to say. I don't know about you, but I think we could call it a night.
I think we could call it a night. I mean, we got so much content thrown in within 90 minutes. Thank you to our listeners. Have a great evening and good night. Let's go Devils.
Let's go Devils. Good night and good luck.